I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to another episode of Passion for Craft podcast. Today we were talking about this book that we said we were going to talk about a while ago, but we read it finally. So we, Richard and I listened to it, but we are going to be talking about mastery and some of the book discussions that we had today. So I think we should start at the beginning. A very good place to start. I'm going to have the chapter overview section up. Table of contents, I think, is what they're sometimes called.
So the reason I wanted everybody to read this book, and if you haven't read this book, you need to read this book, is there's nothing.
This book, by the way, just to say it again, Mastery by George Leonard, I think. Yeah, George Leonard, Mastery. There's like 6 other books called Mastery out there, and there's one that's more popular than this one. That's why I thought it's important to say.
I think that's the one I listened to. No, like way off.
I think this is an appropriate book for us as we look to become master builders, this idea of mastery. And I think the challenge of mastery in any circle is handled or is talked about. And I thought it'd be appropriate for us just to apply it to building. In that, I'm going to start doing this Master Builder University. How long does it take to become a master? That's a good question, right? How long does it take to practice some of this stuff he's doing? So I thought, this is the second time I've read it. My daughter, Gigi, actually is the one who recommended it to me. My daughter, Harry, has now read it. Now Jackson's read it. It's a really good book.
I'm going to read the introduction just to give a quick sense of what the book's about, and then we'll kind of go from there. Start with something simple. Try touching your forehead with your hand. That's easy, automatic, nothing to it. But there was a time where even you were as far removed from the mastery of that simple skill as a non-pianist is from playing the Beethoven sonata. First, you had to learn the control of the movements of your hands, you were just a baby then, and somehow get them to move where you wanted them to. You had to develop some sort of kinesthetic image of your body so that you could know the relationship between your forehead and other parts of your body. You had to learn to match this image with the visual image of an adult's body, and you had to learn how to mimic your mother's actions. Momentous stuff, make no mistake about it. And we haven't considered the matter of language, learning to decode sounds shaped as words and to match them with our own actions. Only after all this could you play the learning game that parents everywhere play with their children. Where's your nose? Where are your ears? Where's your forehead? As with all significant learning, this learning was measured not in a straight line but in stages, brief spurts of progress separated by periods during which you seemed to be getting nowhere. Still, you learned an essential skill. What's more important is you learned about learning. You started with something difficult, made it easy and pleasurable. Through instruction and practice, you took a master's journey. And if you could learn to touch your forehead, you can learn to play a Beethoven sonata or fly a jet plane, or to be a better manager or improve your relationships. Our current society works in many ways to lead us astray, but the path of mastery is always there waiting for us. So that is kind of the general idea of this book, is it studies like what does it look like to go under the process of learning something? What does it look like to become a master at something? So that's kind of the...
Yeah, he explains that, tennis as an example of one of the things he talks about, practicing, that in order to hit the forehand, you really have to think through, I got to turn my wrist over, I got to swing, and you got the timing. He goes, and when you're getting good at it, you no longer have to think, right? That you're no longer thinking about it. It just happens naturally. A couple of things that are good in the start. Mastery, the mysterious process during which what is at first difficult becomes progressively easier and more pleasurable through practice. The question that comes to mind is, when is your work pleasurable? And so I think back in my career, 30 plus years now, it seems like there's a lot more pleasure today than there was 20 years ago. Because I was still learning so many lessons about dealing with clients, handling books, trying to make money, dealing with employees. It was always a battle. It was always thinking through every process. Where now, I've experienced those things. I've gone through those things. So to you guys out there, where are you in this process? Are you still, is it a pleasurable process yet, your work, or is it still a thinking, working through things?
Trying to touch your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like when you go on anything you do and you can just do it on autopilot and just enjoy it is fun. Like an example for me is like I got really into skateboarding. And like it's hard. Like I don't know if you ever tried to do like a kickflip or something.
Yeah.
Like it takes a lot of time.
I can't.
But then once you do it like in little stages. You're doing it standing there first on the grass. You're not even on concrete. Then you're on concrete and you're rolling around a little bit. And then before I know it, I'm like kick flipping over like 7 stairs, and it's like,
Could you actually do that?
Oh yeah.
You're that good.
Yeah. Well, that's really mediocre now, but back then it was like really good. But and I'm just skating. I'm just skating. Boom, kick flip, keep skating. Like, well, that was cool. Board flips under you, catch it with your feet. There's a lot of things like that. You know.
The other thing he says, and I thought of so many builders. I put HGTV by this. He says, seduced by the siren song of consumerist quick fix society, we sometimes choose a course of action that brings only the illusion of accomplishment, the shadow of satisfaction.
HGTV,
It is the illusion of accomplishment. And there's a lot of people that get into building or get into fixing things up that want that illusion, right? And sometimes our customers want that illusion without realizing how much it actually costs.
Right.
And like that paneled wall right there, very few of our customers can actually afford, us building that exactly. It's very expensive. It's very labor intensive. It's just, and so what they end up doing is, nailing 1x4s to the wall and sticking a panel mold in it and saying, I did it. Right. And that would be what I would call the illusion of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, obviously those are frequent in old estates and manors and beautiful places in the world. Not a lot of people can afford that today. We're referencing the Tudor style paneled wall in
quarter-stone oak, fumed oak, paneled wall with hand pegging, with mason's miters, with hand carving. It's just
so there's a little bit of this where our culture as a whole has lost the mastery of fine craft and fine building and stuff. And back in the day and age, like where there probably were a lot more craftsmen who could put something like that together. Do you think that lessened the cost of it relative to what it cost in the day?
100%.
So it did.
Yeah.
So even it just kind of makes that wealth disparity even bigger. As less and less people are actually able to do this thing, it makes it more and more hard to get these finer
Well, the example
things.
I would say is that, Texas tends to be a mason's market. The brick is a big deal. Stone's a big deal. And I'll go to other markets and talk to other builders, and they'll look at our stonework and go, we don't have anybody that can do that. And I'm like, there's a lot of masons that can do that in Texas. And why? Because
we have an abundance of masonry.
We have masonry, and they do it more frequently. And so it costs less for us. It's not as big a hurdle. And so, and there's just an example between two markets.
Yeah, that's helpful. Because I guess I always look at that and I'm like, why don't more people do that? That's amazing. But even hearing you say, no, that's really expensive and not even some of our clients can afford it, it's like, oh, okay. Well,
that's really difficult to do. That is a mastery thing. Oh, yeah. Look how tight all that is.
Yeah, I mean, you just nail a couple boards together.
Yeah. Well, it's like from what I was when I was listening to this, one of the things that seemed to come up was like what you say about that long obedience in a similar direction.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get there without, doing all the basic stuff first.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of hit that plateau and like dig through it. And
totally.
It's just, you've got to keep moving in that direction. I feel like.
Well, I mean, the whole point of this book is this idea that you just referenced. It's called the Master's Journey, and
the Mastery Curve.
Mastery Curve is what he calls it. So, and it's basically this kind of stair-stepped line, okay, where the tread portion of this is very long and the riser portion of this is very short.
So I don't know what tread and riser means, but basically it looks like this. So you've got like a growth, and then you've got a really long plateau that you're stuck in. You don't grow. You're not growing for a really long amount of time. And then you experience a growth, and then you're stuck in this plateau. And it's these long plateaus followed by these short spurts of like, 6 things just came together. Oh my gosh. And then you're stuck in the plateau again.
For another year.
And so that, the comparison for me is golf right now. In the book, it's tennis. But for me,
okay, go ahead. Sorry. I want to hear what everyone's thing is. So I'm kind of curious.
Oh, that's interesting.
I do want to hear, because yours is golf, mine's melee. It sounds like yours was skateboarding is what you thought of.
Yeah, it was. I would say mine is even like craft now. Yeah. Like hitting plateaus. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. But,
well, I mean, that's what I want to get to ultimately is talking about those plateaus in work and where those happen and what's going on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because you can go through long periods like that. And one of the things I think towards reaching mastery is, for me, those steps and plateaus were, one, learning preservation, right? Mm-hmm. That was that first, I liked working with my hands. I was crafty, right? The hand-eye coordination was good. And then I go North Bennett Street. I rise up, and just this elation, this excitement about building, about crafting, about using the hand plane, getting it working again, all that kind of fun stuff. And then you go through this long plateau, and that long plateau for me was, now what do I do, right? Mm-hmm. Like what does building look like for me? Where do I fit in? What kind of jobs will I have? I think I'm trained to be a trim carpenter. I just go be a trim carpenter for a while. And so, going along, learning about preservation, going through different jobs, trying to make more money, not having really the skill set of the thing to make that leap. Then the next thing, you start your own company and you start winning jobs, right? And so this elation, excitement, and then you go through making payroll. Then you go through, doing QuickBooks at the end of the day and trying to fit it all in and trying to run a business and trying to please the customer and trying to hire. And it's just like, there's that plateau right there can burn people out, can just like make you go, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And there's got to be an easier way. How do people do what I'm doing? And then I hit some learning curves, like learning about classicism and learning about, that whole world opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, that's what a molding should look like. That's what the proportions of the room should be. It was the secret unlocking of all this past stuff that was like, another big jump for me, then a long plateau, because you're once you understand that classicism, you don't really understand it until you see. That's a long plateau. It's a long plateau until you see. I mean, I'm still on that plateau in some regards. And then, this last one kind of jumping up is the build science. So there's the mastery in learning, right? And then there's the mastery of the business piece. Mm-hmm. And so, you can have mastery in learning and growing, preservation, classicism, build science, all this, but at the same time, be on the same business plateau for a long time and your company never grows, right? Your company never changes. You don't get past some things. And so, sorry, that was my long explanation for, I want people to understand that, what those plateaus are, because I really hope that this can be encouraging for people, that they can look at where they are in their career, whether they're frustrated or whether they're excited, and understand, that those plateaus can sometimes be a long time.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things you do, I feel like when you're younger, I'm 35. Like I just turned 35 last week, so I'm kind of thanks. I'm kind of younger still. One of the things you do when you're younger is like you kind of look around. Like when you're in a plateau, you're like, I wonder what else I could be doing.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I don't know if I even want to do this. Mm-hmm. Is this optimal?
Yeah.
But I think that as you mature, or as you out of necessity, like you're kind of doing something, you stick with it, Yeah.
I mean, Chrissy will tell you that would come home many a day going, I think I just want to go back to teaching, or I think I just want to go back to, being a trim carpenter. I don't like owning my own business. I'm getting my butt kicked out here. So, no doubt.
Yeah. Those
plateaus are long and hard, or can be.
On that, to your point, there's 3 archetypes that he, kind of, it says we all aspire to mastery, but the path is always long and sometimes rocky. And I think that's a really important piece that we're all talking about, is like hitting those long and rocky bits is never the fun part. It promises no quick and easy payoff, so we look for other paths, each of which attracts a certain type of person. Can you recognize yourself in any of the following 3 graphs? So the first one is described as a dabbler, and so you've got that first I'm learning the sport, and then you see the rise that pops up, and then it starts to plateau again, and as soon as that plateau happens, they just drop it and they drop the sport. And so
I do that with like diets.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This kind of sucks.
Yeah, I have done that with the Whole 30 every year I've done it. Where I've done the Whole 30, I lose 20 pounds, and I'm like, this is incredible. I'm going to stay on this. And then I just drop it as soon as
Why do we do that?
The next week happens.
Like, why can't we just commit to stuff? It's so weird.
I think it's because I lock in. I try and like get myself into too much. I'm like, no, I got to be the hardest and the strictest I've done. And I can do it for 30 days because I'm like, I'm committing to 30 days. But then after 30 days, I'm like, well, I can have a snack here and there. I can.
Well, what's weird about that is like, let's say you have the snack here and there.
Yeah.
We've all done that. Something flips in my mind where I'm like, well, I already kind of blew it. So.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you could probably eat that snack and it would mean, and get right back into it, it would mean nothing.
Yeah.
But you like mentally are like, well, I screwed up already. Like, let's just burn the whole thing down.
So that would be like the obsessive. Okay. So the obsessive is a bottom line type of person, not one to settle for second best. He or she knows he or she knows results are what count, and doesn't matter how you get them. So just get to them fast. So he wants to get the stroke just right during the very first lesson. So after class, I'll talk to the instructor and I'll ask what books and tapes he can buy to make him progress faster. He leans towards the listener when he talks. His energy's up front when he walks. It's an obsessive type of person. So their graph is described as like you plateau a little bit, and then you go up to your first, like, all right, we're starting to do better, and then it kind of plateaus again, and they're like, I gotta get everything right, and so their path towards excellence just looks sporadic, and then they drop it off because they've failed.
Which I will say about this one, if you are this one, you're annoying to other people. Because I've been obsessive and I've been around obsessive people, and it's just like, dude, let it go. Like, cut it, just give it a break.
Yeah.
There's some good things with obsession, but if you're like that obsessive, you just aren't fun to be around.
Right. Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
There's got to be freedom.
That's why I'm like,
even you mentioned classicism. Mm-hmm. Like, I have this book of a bunch of classical porches and stuff, and like I see in there that like they didn't really, although they're really awesome, like fireplaces and porches and stuff, a lot of them like kind of strayed from stuff, and I don't want to be like, this idiot didn't even know like this doesn't go here. You're kind of just like, I mean, it still looks good,
right?
Unless it's not like some awful thing that they did. But does that make sense? What I'm saying?
100%.
One of the things this book kind of talks about, him leaning towards being an obsessive in his tennis game, and it's either he or the example that he gives is he says he went to his tennis instructor after one or two lessons, or after maybe like a year or so of lessons. So he'd been doing it for a while, and he goes, okay, so when do you think I can go like compete? When do you think I can go like actually get into it? And the instructor says like competitively, he's like, well, I mean, you're not like, you don't have it perfect yet, so like you probably won't do well, but you can go compete then. He's like, what? I won't do well, or what was the story?
Well, the guy goes, when can I be competitive and
be competitive?
And he was like, well, it'll be 3 to 5 years. he's like, wait, no, I'm not waiting 3 to 5 years. He goes, when can I start, beating my friends? And it's like, you're just like, well, 6 months, 8 months. And so anyway, it's just this guy kind of nipping at his instructor. When will I be great? And just.
So this is me. I've totally done this. I don't know if did anyone else experience that or not really? Like
wanting to just jump
reading
in.
that part where you were like, oh yeah, I've done verbatim what he's describing here.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Picked up the game Melee, Super Smash Bros. Melee. I've talked about it before, but it's one of my hobbies that I play with my friends, and it is one of the most technically demanding video games out there. A lot of video games where they just want you to move, play, have fun. This game, you've got to put in so much time in order to be able to move. Otherwise, it feels like you're walking through molasses, and it just feels wrong. It feels like you're not playing it.
Is this is Super Smash Brothers?
Super Smash Brothers Melee, yeah.
What's the
it's the one that was made for the GameCube, so it was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
And so,
I have the Switch one.
Yeah.
It's not that.
The Switch one feels great, right? It's easy to pick up. This one is intentionally hard to pick up, and they wanted it to be a challenge. Anyway,
okay, I see.
Point being, I started playing it, and I actually told a bunch of my friends, why are we playing this one? I don't want to do this with you. This game sucks and I hate it. It feels so bad to play. And they're all like, well, if you get good at it, it's actually really rewarding and it's really good in the practice of it. It just takes a really long time. And I was impatient and I literally said, I don't want to do that. Let's only play the one for the Switch. Let's only if we want to play this game, let's do that. So a while went by. I want to say years went by. I think it was 1 or 2 years. I watched a tournament played between two of the best players in it, and I was like, that was incredible. Everything that I know from this video game is great. What they just did there was incredible. I want to play this game. So I picked it up, and it's been a while. So I played for about a year, and I asked a guy, I paid for some coaching, and I asked the guy, when do you think I can be competitive? When do you think I can win?
Situation.
I said, when do you think I can go to a tournament? And he goes, well, to put it into context, I've been playing this game for 15 years, and I play regularly. And this is a top pro. He was number one in the world for a while. And he goes, I want, I'm not competitive with the number one people out there. Whoa. And they're playing 7-8 hours a day. And you will never be able to be competitive with the top players just because they have such a gap on you. And I was like, never? He's like, well, you would have to quit your job. You would have to everything if you want to be competitive at a high level. And I was like, no way. So this was 2 years ago. So since I've entered a bunch of tournaments, and he's right. And I'm on the ranked board and everything like that. And so on the ranked leaderboard, they have systems to show you where you are. All through last year, I could not get out of bronze, which was where I was, which is the lowest one. It's the worst one. So I've been playing for 3 years now. This year, I got into silver. And I'm on the upper end of silver, and that's as far as I can get. And so it goes silver, gold, platinum, diamond, grandmaster, or master, then grandmaster. So there's many more to go.
That is crazy.
And it just shows one, that guy was right, but then also I just wanted to hack it. And my next question to him was, well, I just want to beat my friends, so help me beat my friends. And he was like, okay. And even still, I am the best out of my friend group now, but that journey, I was like, I so resonate with this. And
that's so funny.
That's the exact
that
scenario.
You did that.
I did the exact same thing. So, I think that shows I want to be the obsessive in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I know big pause in between the archetypes, but the third archetype, so you've got the dabbler, picks up new skills, and then drops it after a while. I don't really like it. I don't want to just try it out.
I definitely do that too.
Yeah.
Well, we all do some of these in different areas of our life.
Well, so then the obsessive is, I want to dive in. I want to get every single thing nitpicked perfect. And then the hacker is, I just want to pick it up. And as long as I'm good enough to just hang out and I've figured it out, yeah, I'm great with that. I have no desire to go better after I've gotten to a certain point. And so I just want to hack it. So that's kind of the three archetypes there that are, he says it is something they're dangerous to get into those mindsets where, if you turn into the obsessive, you're missing the joys of mastery. If you turn into the dabbler, you're missing the joys of mastery. And so his main point ultimately is the mastery curve, you will never be at a perfect point. You can always continue to improve, and you thrive in these, stair steps. And, the plateaus are the not fun parts, and he describes them that way. But in the plateaus, there is joy to be found in, I'm learning this thing, I'm doing this. And his, thing that he related it most to is Aikido, which is like a very technical Japanese martial art that he is now would be considered a master in by many other people. But I think he himself even says there's still more I can learn and still more I'm doing, and anything like that. So
one of the things we've talked about in this podcast before is that practicing mastery and learning these ancient skills, learning the carving, for instance, is not something that is very American. And one of the chapters is America's war against mastery.
Yes.
And so realize that we're kind of predisposed in America to kind of
be the hacker.
Well, he has a different thing that we're always kind of looking for the next drug, the next high, the next kind of thing. Looking for modern, and he compares it to like looking at modern medicine, that we want fast relief, that we want to take a pill to calm a headache. We want to do these things. We'd rather go get drunk. I'm not saying everybody, but they go party, maybe say it that way, go party and then, pay for it later with Pepto-Bismol and, and Advil or whatever it is, as opposed to living in a way that you wouldn't require those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. I found myself doing that. Right when I'm like
partying.
He talks about,
7 years
he talks about, my dad used to talk about this. The typical 12-minute office visit does not give the doctor time to get to know the patient, much less his or her way of life, but it does give them time to write a prescription.
Yeah.
My dad was saying that basically what happens with
who is a doctor
was
once a doctor, always a doctor.
He's a doctor. He's no longer practicing, but he's a doctor.
Dr.
He would say that his the thing that would frustrate him, and he in fact come home and tell my brother and I he didn't want us to go into medicine, which he later denies saying that. But he was just like he would say that he would get frustrated by the system. He would get frustrated by insurance. He'd get frustrated by the things. And he would say that the insurance companies will, pay for doctor business, but they've done the science, they've looked at it, and they only require 5 minutes, or they only require 8 minutes. And it was a time clock thing of this is how long you get with the patient. And if you spend longer than that, then you're, not efficient. You're not making everybody money and all these different things. And it's just like, that's so disappointing. But, that this chapter being America predisposed against mastery, right? That the doctor we all want, right? That doctor who's going to spend time with you, who's going to help you, feel better, is going to, he would say, look, if you look at the way doctoring used to be done in America, the family doctor who would go visit you in your house, there was a lot of advantages of that doctor visiting your house, right? You see whether it's a clean environment, you see what they're, what kind of, if there's diseases, if they're exposed to something,
right.
you get to see them, function in life. And today, you don't do that anymore. So
that's why
fast food versus slow food, fast fashion versus, slow fashion. You're right. It's just,
I always wonder why that makes a lot of sense. Cause when I've gone to the doctor, it feels very rushed and like not personal. Yeah. Just like, okay, you really care.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So that's built into that whole system. That, hey, get in, get out, because you've got other patients. We need to get out this to write prescriptions.
Yeah, the insurance company is only going to pay the doctor's office for 12 minutes of that visit. So any time that you spend after that visit is going to be on you. It's not, you're going to lose your office money. You're going to lose, because the insurance is only paying for this much. And
great incentives.
Yeah, no, it's just and so attaining mastery in our culture, right, is realize that. Our whole industry, this podcast is a pursuit of mastery. And the pushback we get, I would argue, is people saying no one will pay for that. We don't have time for that. It's these exact things that we're talking about here.
Money, no one has the time for that.
Yeah.
The next chapter, we talked about it already, but loving the plateau, I think, is the part that we miss in the Americanized part, where it's like, we want to see results now. We want to see results quickly. We want it, done quick and easy. And if you're not finding joy in that plateau, often it's going to take you to be the one who's going to say, hey, I like this. And he uses the Aikido as the example, where he's loved the ritual of stepping onto the mat, the smell of the gym, he enjoyed those things, even though he felt like, he wasn't necessarily learning new things, but the the motions were becoming more fluid and everything was clicking and coming together more. And it wasn't until like the leap happened later on that it actually came together, but it still was a interesting thing.
I started by saying that my example is golf right now.
Mm-hmm.
And golf is a very difficult sport, very hard.
Yes.
And if your whole obsession is to get to scratch golfer or whatever the goal is,
which is the best goal,
most pros are a plus golfer. Yeah. So you're basically, there's a handicap given in the golf system that if you typically shoot 84, your handicap's going to be, I think, 8 or 10 or whatever your handicap's going to be. But if the so Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, they're probably like a +6. Most golfers are, and so if you think par is 72, it's what you're scoring compared to par.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just saying there's a
I didn't understand this until recently. Well, until you really got into golf, but I think it's super important. And I felt like I understood the concept of golf, and I knew what par was and everything. And handicaps just really threw a wrench in the whole system for me. But it's very, very simple, honestly. It's every course suggests that you finish it in 72 holes or in 72 strokes of hitting the ball 72 times.
Every 18-hole
Every 18-hole course suggests 72, or sometimes they're more, sometimes they're less, but it's usually 72. And so if you are on par, if you're playing at the way that the course is intended to be played, or at perfect golf, right? You are hitting on par. And
That's
so
what
you've
on
hit
par
75
means.
strokes.
Okay.
Yeah, or 72 strokes. So no one does that, or very few people are. When it's a scratch golfer,
1%, less than 1% of
really
people are scratch golfers.
And so when you're a scratch golfer, it means you hit par. And so no one does that, right? 1%.
It's 1%.
So everyone else is usually over. So your handicap is basically what you are over. Like in the scoring system, they give that back to you automatically. So it's like you feel like you are.
So majority of golfers in America are like a 12 or 15 handicap. Okay,
so they're 15 over 72.
Yeah, right. So they're 80 to 90. They're shooting in the 80s and 90s. Okay, and so
I'm a 25 handicap.
Yeah, so it's in any case, my point is that, or the reason I was saying that, I wanted to explain kind of this thing you said.
Love the plateau.
Yeah. If you don't, you will just sit there and grind, and every shot you miss, you're like, But if you like I'm out here walking, it's outside, it's in the sunshine, and every once in a while I'll hit a really pure shot that just feels so good, and you find joy in that plateau, then that's what it's about, and it's finding that excitement in the little things, like you were explaining the mat and stuff like that, because otherwise you can tear yourself up. Now, taking that to the building business and stuff like that, there's been times in my career where the metric I'd set for myself was a revenue number, right? Was I want to have sales of X, and I want to be this big of a company, and when you set a metrics like that, you are you start focusing on the wrong things, right? It's no longer the client and the customer. It's about how much money you're going to make, and it's no longer you're more concerned about sales than you are concerned about the execution and making sure you take care of that customer. And so, this is the cautionary thing to the guys out there is make sure that plateau and that path that you're working on isn't a revenue number. I don't plan and budget every year we're going to do,
We need to do this amount more.
Yeah,
than
we need
last.
to do. I look at it and I go, we'll probably be in that range of numbers, right? Just so that
Just based off the previous years.
Yeah, and you want metrics, you want things that
And his accountant loves it. I'm just kidding.
And so you want a metric, you want a thing, but it is no longer the metric, right? The metric now for me is this pursuit of pleasing the client and taking care of the client, and so that then influences what I tell my guys is important. That's what I tell my managers I care about, and so it just makes a big difference.
I think like realizing you're in a plateau is a big deal. And this came to my mind. We were talking about my recruit training and the boot camp when I joined the Marines. And one of the things was I didn't tell you this part, but when we got to the swimming course of the training, I jumped in the water. You have this like 65-pound pack on. You go on a diving board and you're like full camoed out. And I don't know how I was like the first one and I can't swim good. And I jumped in, like cross your legs and go in. Yeah. And I just start drowning. Yeah. And then the guy comes out and saves me or throws me the, raft or the whatever the thing is. And he goes, go stand over there. You failed. You're getting dropped back to like the next class. And I was like standing there like, my parents already bought like the tickets to come see me graduate. Right. Like they're just jerks. You know, they didn't drop me back. But pretty soon, like, I'm the first one in this failure line. Then all these other people are failing too, and I'm like, there's no way they're gonna drop all of us, But one of the things he said is like you guys, he was teaching us, and he's like, you need to like realize like when you're drowning, like stop and think like, hey, I'm drowning. Like calm down. You guys are freaking out, and we were, because like when you drown, you're like, crap, I gotta like get up. So we're in this plateau of drowning. And it was really cool. He was like, you have in your lungs, if you'll just calm down, like air, you have like a flotation device right here. Breathe in, lean back, and you can float. And like we literally all learned to float that day. Wow. Like within an hour. And we're just floating with this pack on, like, whoa, this is crazy. With 65 pounds on? Yeah, you're just he says, lean back on the pack, take a deep breath, and then you just float. You just look up. No and way. That's crazy. So I've always thought about that. Like if I'm in like a crazy situation, I can hear him saying like, realize that you're drowning. Like think like, I'm drowning. Let's handle this. Don't just be like, oh, I'm drowning and freak out. Yeah. Like when you freak out is when you do dumb decisions. You could die if you're actually drowning, So yeah, that's kind of my plateau. Like if you realize you're in it, you can like, okay, this sucks, but I'm in a plateau right now,
But I think it's important that when you're analyzing where you are, that there is a path forward, that there is a metric you're going to drive for or a path that you're on, because I don't want you to just kind of be in a plateau and be like, well, I guess this is where I'm at.
Well, and that's the hacker, right? The visual for the hacker, I don't know if we'll be able to get it tight on that, but it's like you go up, you get a plateau, you go up again, you get a plateau, and then you just kind of sit in that last plateau. And the hacker never drops off. The obsessive and the other two, they drop off. The hacker just kind of, well, I can do it,
And there's been a lot of trim carpenters, a lot of guys that have worked for this over the years that are the hacker, that don't have aspirations to be anything more than just a trim carpenter. And what that means in my mind is they are installing the same door over and over. They're installing the same stair system over and over. They're installing the same, hardware sets. And they don't know how to, maybe do preservation work where you do a full mortise lock set, or they don't know, how to,
and not necessarily just don't know, but are unwilling to learn if you present it to them too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
because in my mind that's where the problem occurs. It's not necessarily like, hey, if someone doesn't know something, and there's like a necessity to grow, but an unwillingness to grow seems like the bigger problem.
I just feel like, maybe that's it, but I just feel like that there's so much to learn in our business, and it's just like coming to Buildings and Brew and just learning about the history of what we're doing, or the history of architectural styles. I think there needs to be an eagerness. There needs to be a path forward that I want to know more. Maybe that's all it is. That it's not just I'm a trim carpenter. I make $25 an hour. This is great, you know. But it's like, actually, I want to understand house styles so that I know which porches to build, and which handrails are appropriate for which style, and what that really looks like. And I'm actually a student of architecture, so that I can go do a tapered column because I've actually measured like 8 of them around my city. And I know what the variance is, and I know how these actually look and actually supposed to work. So I think the plateaus are fine, but I think there has to be a push forward. And I think a lot of guys will get frustrated in this world and in this time because there doesn't seem to be a path forward, right? What do I aspire to? What's next for me? How do I grow in this business? And I mean, you can get stuck without growth, I think.
Yeah, you need those. Like if you look at the graph, it's like you're walking in this valley, then you encounter a mountain. It's kind of like what's at the top of the mountaintop. If you don't have another like mountain in front of you where you could see like I want to be on the top of that, you could stuck.
I mean, I think about where you were with doing the accent walls, and they came in here and looking at our moldings and going, oh my gosh, I didn't know people did this, right?
That was a mountaintop, yeah.
Right, and that's where you look at it and go, okay, well now I understand where the next path is, and I now understand, what historical precedent is, and so okay, I've got a path now.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think you had a path before. I think it can be disheartening.
No, I was actually in a big plateau at that time. Like, yeah, just a huge plateau. It's like kind of looking around like, what else do I want to do type thing.
And it may be the guys get into making cabinets. It may be the guys get into doing other things. But I want to encourage people that there's a path forward, because even me as a builder now, my path forward is continuing to learn. I mean, I see, for me, it was the libraries of old books and looking at those things going, oh my gosh, those guys knew so much about building. I really want to know more about that. And when I was doing the research for the historic millwork book, I stumbled across so many things. I was like, I actually have an idea for my next book. It's like the secret art of building, and some of these rules and some of these things that I see that these builders did 200 years ago, and go, that's still necessary today. That's information that could still inspire and encourage people. So my path forward is actually looking at the past, learning, growing, and even though I'm on a plateau right now, it's very comfortable loving the plateau because I am learning, I am growing, I am prepping for that next step. And so
I guess I'm thinking of my experience, in K-Life as well. I mean, there's more tangible examples. I mean, I'll just use Melee as an example, right? Where I feel like I checked the boxes where I was like, oh, I've practiced, I've done the things that I know I need to do, and I feel like I've checked the boxes. For the builders out there who are like, okay, well, I feel like I've done everything that I know how to learn how to do. What else can I be doing? Could y'all give maybe some practical steps of hey, think about this. And I know you've kind of given a few, just maybe you could go into cabinetry, but what are I don't know. I'm big with tangibles. So is there a list you could give of think about this?
I got one.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I've taken your advice on is starting a library, because I've got on eBay and got these older books that really I just wrapped up that mantle at my house, and I could not have done it without those books. There's no way I could have done it, because I'm literally have all these books open on the living room floor, and I'm okay, I have this molding that will actually it looks kind of like this one. Almost to the point of psycho, I stood at that wall for hours. Okay, so having that library.
But I love that. I mean, that's when you're growing. That's when you're learning. I
know. I need to show you a picture.
You being stumped right there, looking at that, trying to build it in your head. I love that. That's awesome. But I mean, I've got a hacker story. When we were,
I'll show you this. I'll show you later. Go ahead with the story.
When we were building, when I was doing more spec builds, what was that? I guess right before the recession.
2007.
2007. I'm working with an architect, a really good architect. We were partners, doing design build stuff and doing specs. We started doing some specs, and so when you do that, you there'll be new developments that open up that'll have they call them designer showcase houses, or they'll have a Street of Dreams, or they'll have the builder associations have these things, and it'll be basically showcasing 5 houses from 5 different builders.
Did you say Street of Dreams?
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Pretty much. And so they 5 or 6 different houses that people, then they'll open up for tours, they sell tickets, and then people come look through the things. And what you're hoping is that your house sells, right? And so they'll actually have it'll be a juried contest. It'll be, they'll actually have best in show. They'll actually have, favorite, and people are voting and stuff like that. And so I remember there was this guy, he was in the shoe business, and he had gone to Italy and was inspired by Tuscan homes and stuff like that, and wanted to come back to the States and build these custom Italian houses. And he was the he was the
dabbler.
Yeah, he was the dabbler. Okay, so because he basically, I remember the way he talked about houses as if he was this expert, as if he was this guy. And I was sitting there, I kept looking at him and go, at the time, I've been doing it for about 20 years. And I'm probably 15 years. So I was still arrogant enough to think I knew everything. And he basically was acting like he knew everything. And it pissed me off. And because he goes, I know more than that guy. And he can't. And so, but he reminds me of he was involved in building until building got uncomfortable. And so the recession comes along. And so I'd known him for probably 3 or 4 years, maybe 2005, 2006, 2007. He's going to start building more houses because everything's so successful. Everything I'm building is selling. And then, of course, the recession comes along, kicks everybody in the teeth. And, he disappears, and he disappeared. And so it's, I don't know why I told that story.
He's the dabbler.
Except he's the dabbler. He's the example of that builder who, and there's a lot of homeowners who think they know how to build because they can, get a plan and hire a framer and, they're builders. And it's not that way. If you want to be in for a long time.
I think
where you were going there.
I think you were going on because he was asking what a tangible thing would be for a builder.
Oh, sorry. I think my example was that what I was thinking of is a lot of builders establish a tangent of, I'm building $500,000 houses. I want to build $1 million houses. I'm building $1 million houses. I want to build, that next level up. I could make more money. I could do that if I was doing those luxury houses, because basically it's the same thing as my house. It's just more square footage. And so, that would be an example of a metric not to chase, right? That the metric that we're chasing right now is trying to perform so well for our clients that they lead us to the next job. That there's no marketing, that there's no work. Everything's word of mouth, and everything is this praise from our clients that these guys know what they're doing. That's the metric.
Well, you'll get a lot of that now, right?
Not as much as I'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, not as much as I'd like.
So, section 2 was all about the 5 master keys.
You want to go through them?
I can go through them. They are instruction, practice, surrender, intentionality, and the edge.
And I think those are all things where he's describing that plateau and how you rise above to that next plateau. That practice is a good one, right? And that's kind of where we are right now, is we are practicing customer service and execution in a way that leads to better things. And I don't know how long we're going to be in this plateau, right? But I'm enjoying the process of improving our service, improving our communication, improving our billing, and improving our things. And that's the practice of building so that, we get better and better.
Implement systems.
Yeah.
Is a big part of that.
Part of the instruction is part of why I was trying to segue with some of those things that you can do. He tells a story about how he was a good teacher and how he was a bad teacher to some flight cadets that he was teaching in. And so basically he took 2 of his most promising students from a class one year and pulled them aside and basically said, all right, I'm going to teach you guys specifically. And everything that he gave them was like 10 times harder than the next guy. So When they had a flight error margin of 200 feet, he told them they had 50 feet. When they had, all sorts of stuff like that. And those guys thrived and they did really well. But at the same time, he was teaching some other guys who were not showing a lot of promise. And the patience that he showed those guys was non-existent. And the care that he had in investing in these other two guys was not the same. And so he was using that as an example of a time that he was a bad teacher. But no, you're trying to get good instruction on people so that you can, from people so that you can become a better master. So I guess know when to ask for help and then know when you are good on help.
Yeah, I mean, this whole Master Builder University is an experiment in that. It's just like, do I know as much as I think I know, and will it help other people, get better in what they're doing, by me sharing this?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the part of that practice is then sharing and teaching and leading others.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it, I think it will be interesting to see what you're able to impart in terms of, because it's one thing to know stuff, but it's another thing to be able to implement it.
Well, I mean, they're basically going to take a body of information and then go practice it, because it's not going to be something that's going to immediately change their lives. It's going to be something that if they practice those things, they are working towards becoming this person. Maybe that's the metric or the thing that I'm hoping to give them a sight line of saying, this is where you're going. This is what the opportunity is.
Then it will come down to the third key, which is surrender, how much are you willing to surrender to the master that's above you, and how much are you willing to be disciplined, surrender to discipline, and actually implement those things. Sorry, I know we're close on time, so I'm also just trying to...
Yeah, no. You're doing good.
Move through a lot of these. The intentionality chapter it's basically uses golf as an example. Do you want to talk on the...
That's okay. You can do it.
But basically, he's just talking about how what your mindset is when you're going into practice, when you're going into implementation of stuff, and like mentality is, I think, the thing there. I can't remember
what you're doing though is you're practicing inner thoughts and it's a mindset, right? That of the way you're going to achieve mastery, as opposed to I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and I'll be done. This is no. You're approaching this is like, I'm not sure how long that plateau is going to be, but I'm going to be practicing these things, and your expectations change, your focus changes.
There's a lot of good examples on this. I used, when I was a pole vaulter back in my glory days. You used to help me with this. I had a sports psychologist that helped me with this. But one of the things that she often said was, if I say to you right now, don't think of a purple elephant, what are you thinking about?
Yeah,
a purple elephant. So the whole idea with that is just you need to be intentional about how you go and approach the jump. It's not don't stop short, don't whatever. It's I need to think about what I'm going to do and think about how I'm going to do it. So there's the mentality of like, why are you accomplishing the things that you're accomplishing? What is your focus when you're doing this? And then the other thing is you used to do this with soccer too. Whenever you were coaching me, is like think about like how you're striking the ball. Think about like where you're striking the ball. Think about what. And so even just those mentalities of I'm going into this, this job with the intention of building this in a certain way, with the intention of becoming a better builder on this. Because I think the discouragement possibility is very real, but then also the longing to get caught
and
up
I think there's also a piece, and we can wrap it up with this, but there's also a piece of who you're looking to please and who you're looking to impress. Because if you're a builder, like the example of that guy, he cared more about that he was the top guy and that he was the builder than he did about the craft of building. And he cared more about what people said about him. He cared more about, and if you're in golf and you care more about that you don't want to look stupid versus I just want to hit a beautiful shot here, those are two different mindsets, because one's going to make you scared, one's going to make you, most likely,
focused, really.
not focused. And so
it's like the drowning thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't think and go, okay, I'm drowning right now. Let's get a good head on my shoulders. You're just going to drown.
Right.
I don't remember what the edge was. I'm reading this chapter. I'm like, I don't remember what that is. This is the fifth key.
We're kind of out of time, but this is a book that you guys should read. That the reason we wanted to do it is because this is what we're trying to practice here. I'm a master builder, quote unquote, but there's still such a path before me, and there's a plateau before me. Richard, has just come up over the hill, and he's on a new plateau. Jackson's about to hit his wall and go over the wall and be excited about all he's going to learn. Then he'll hit a plateau, and that pathway that you're on, I just don't want you guys to get stuck there and lost there and not have a future, not have a path forward. Both Richard and I have been inspired by books, right? I've been inspired by the looking into the past to realize what the opportunity is going forward. If you're a builder, go do remodeling. If you're a remodeler, go do building. You're going to learn new things on each of those different jobs. If you're doing residential, go do commercial. If you're doing commercial, go do residential. Different standards, different things, different ways of learning, different paths, all growing towards mastery. The
last thing I'll say just in closing on this book that I think is really helpful. One, I loved it. I thought it was really good. I think there's something, that's what I was curious about asking about everyone. But I feel like there's something in everyone's life that you're like, oh, I totally have felt this with that. And I've totally experienced that moment with this. And I'm a young guy, and so I know, like, if I'm feeling it, then other people are as well. Then the one thing that I've always admired about both of you guys is y'all are both very humble and saying, I don't know everything, and I'm still trying to learn. I'm still trying to figure this out. And so just as someone who has a desire to want to know things and want to be the expert on things, it is affirming and reassuring. But I think that's also a sign of mastery, is when someone is like, nope, I don't know everything. And even when they're like, we call Brent the master, and even you saying, I don't know everything, I'm still figuring this out. I think that is the right mindset to approach all this with, is there's always more to learn, and there's always more that you can better yourself on. And as soon as the epilogue chapter is called The Master and the Fool for this very purpose, because I think you'd be foolish to think that you can ever learn.
Yeah, that's everything. Like that saying, what do you teach the guy that knows everything? Right. Right. He's so arrogant and full of it, like he can't,
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. It's a great motto of life. All right, well, that's all we've got for this episode. It's a great book, Mastery by George Leonard. Please go check it out if you have a desire to continue to better yourself in everything, in anything. So it's helpful. We'll see you next time.